All right, guys, welcome to the KFO Show, the best show on H2O. All right, just made that up. Guys, I got HellaBass tonight. It's like I got a lot going on right now. That I'm not in my typical studio. For those of you on the podcast, you're like, I can't see where you're at. I am in Wisconsin right now on a work trip, and I thought I'd turn off the heat, and it just turned on like 3 seconds ago. It's blowing hot air in my face. I can't turn it off. I am all messed up, but that's all right because the show must go on. Guys, it's episode number 19. If you love kayak fishing, love fishing in general, you're going to love the show tonight. I'm going to get some shout outs, give some credit where credit's due. Last week, you might remember that I kicked off my channel memberships and got a few of you guys who were like, yeah, you know what? That's what I want. So I wanted to thank Digs Outdoors, Bucktail Fishing, Homestead on the Preserve. And if you don't know what that is, you can kind of check that out. It's basically my way of going the extra mile for you. So it doesn't change it if you're just, a casual or regular viewer. But if you want a little bit more, I help provide that. It's like, for instance, early access to videos, figuring that out. Another thing I'm doing, like I literally signed a contract for a pro staff deal, and my channel members know that type of stuff because they're kind of my inner circle. I kind of bounce ideas off them. So that's something you're interested in. Check that out. Also, want to give props to my channel sponsor tonight. Jeff is actually a listener. He's in the comments. So if you have a question about any of this stuff, but he owns usrivermaps.com. If you haven't checked these out yet, if you're on the podcast, head over to usrivermaps.com. And these are like awesome hydrological maps of states and watersheds. And he does a really great job at it. He kicked off his business about, 25 weeks ago, right around the same time we kicked off the KFO show. And yeah, I just keep seeing these photos pop up of all the guys that have been on the show and these really awesome art pieces that Jeff's putting together for them. So, Jeff, thank you for bringing value to the show in that way. And if you're on the podcast, get $35 off is a code that you can use on his website. And so go check that out. All right. I think that's it. Finally, the heat stopped blowing in my face. Maybe you can stop hearing that now. But it's been a good week. So got the channel memberships up, signed on to pro staff. I'll talk about that. Probably not today. I had my third video hit 100,000 views. So guys, thank you so much for all of you. You're the ones who make that happen. But enough about me. Let's bring on HellaBass. Rich, welcome to the show, man. So 3.4 million views, and you've been posting videos for a long time.
Guilty as charged. What's up, everybody?
I mean, long time. I'm cruising through your YouTube, and we're like over a decade ago. So you started.
Yeah,
you started
kind
early.
Spotty start. Like if I would have stuck with it, who knows, right? Like I probably would when there was definitely a time when getting discovered on YouTube was a little easier. And I was making a few videos back then, and some of them actually did pretty well, but I didn't really stick with it. But I think I've been going hard now for about 3-4 years. Serious, kind of consistent.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that. I was looking at it. Like, all right, he's been going at it. So tell us the YouTube journey. I know you kind of briefly just skimmed over it, but first thing I have everyone do when they hop on the show is kind of share your story, and feel free to take a deep dive on it. We got a bunch of time.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, back when I first started, when you're talking like 10 years ago, I think I threw a couple videos up because back then, like TV fishing shows were a thing. Like those were right, Hank Parker, I don't know, right. There was a lot of regional shows, and I thought it'd be really cool to have a fishing show. So the idea of posting some videos and maybe getting discovered or noticed kind of was probably my original motivation, thinking and then, it was sporadic. And I had a buddy for a while. There's a couple episodes out there where they're actually kind of produced like a fishing episode. I forget what we even called it. It was a buddy, Greg Huffmai, and he had this. He didn't have a boat. I had a boat. Fairly serious bass angler. He was pretty casual, but he was very much into music and editing and all that kind of stuff. So we worked on a few videos together. Love Greg. His follow through wasn't that great, and a couple times he lost hard drives of stuff we filmed, and it would always take him a really long time to get out videos. And they were good videos at the time, and edited and stuff, but it didn't really take hold. And then he got job changes and had kids, and it was always hard to connect, so that kind of fell apart. Then it kind of took a little bit of a break, and kind of just and I had a blog for a long time that was fairly popular, Rich's Bassin blog back in the day that did really well in like search and stuff.
Yeah, I found that.
Huh?
I found some blog that you had today. It's
Yeah,
still
I don't
alive,
really
right?
keep up with it. It's still,
Yeah, I noticed.
there's a
Last,
richlingman.com version of it. It's all archived there, but I was pretty consistent writing like, I don't know, probably 3, 4, 5 blogs a week at one point, and it got a lot of traction to like back in the day, just about anything you searched bass fishing related when I was blogging, I came up usually in the top 10 results on the first page.
nice.
But that kind of also fell by the wayside, and I was kind of getting heavy into fantasy fishing again, and was doing videos on that because that was something that I could whip out kind of consistently, and that kind of got the wheels turning again for me. And then I had an early spring tournament in Gunnersville for a Bass Nation. I think that was in 2019, and that's kind of when I really started like, okay, I'm gonna stick with it this time, because I was like doing fantasy fishing videos all spring, and then rolled into that fishing, and then kind of kept things going, and yeah, and then kind of got to the subscriber mark for getting monetized as COVID was starting.
All right.
But I didn't have the watch hours, so I thought live streaming would be a good way to get my watch hours up to get the threshold for getting monetized. But then I found out, like, during COVID, like, that was like right during shutdown, like, April of like when things were really serious, like everything was closed. It's like some states, like parks and boat ramps, and like they were like questioning whether we should get together for weigh-ins and like all this stuff, right? Yeah. And it was like, and I found that after not going into work and not seeing as many friends in person, that like hanging out and talking like this via the internet and live chats was really therapeutic, and really scratched that itch that like getting together at boat ramps or just fishing with your buddy, like hanging out and talking for an hour or 2 or 3 at night, was like, this is really like fulfilling that void at the time. And so really once started as a ploy to get watch hours, turned into like, this is really something I enjoy, and the community of it. And I'm sure it looks like you have a very passionate community here on your end as well. And that's what really drives me more than anything, is just the community behind the YouTube fishing, and the community and the content that's, I guess, the long and the short of it. And this time of year, it's tips and tricks and fancy fishing, but hopefully the ice will melt soon, and we'll be digging into actually getting out on the water and doing tournament videos and all that kind of stuff.
Who's excited about that listening in? For a lot of you are north of Ohio. So you're in Minnesota, right?
Yep. I live just south of Minneapolis.
I literally probably drove by your house like yesterday. I flew into Minneapolis.
Did you fly into MSP?
I did. Yeah. And then I went to
where?
I'm down in the Dells right now. I've kind of met, was it Eau Claire?
Like
yeah, I was there this morning, and then drove, and I'm making my way, basically driving back to Ohio after a bunch of different meetings. But I brought my ultralight fishing pole, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to find moving water, because I know everything was frozen. Like, I did my research, but I found some today, and it was a big old river, and didn't catch a flipping thing. There's probably like 6 other boats. They're all walleye fishing right now. I just simply didn't have that tackle. And I'm always afraid when I fly with like hooks, like something like not tiny jigs, that they're going to find it and take it. So I always spread it out in my suitcase all over the place. So if they find one, I still have a bunch. So take that.
Pretty successful. I've never had anybody stop me for a tackle in like my carry-on.
All right. Well, good.
That being said, I wouldn't be like throwing OG Vixens or depths. I wouldn't fly with anything I wouldn't be prepared to lose, I guess, right?
That's the moment.
Nothing sacred. Nothing unreplaceable.
Yeah, right. Calvin, my man, thank you so much for the support there. That's awesome. All right, guys. Once again, this is a interactive show. So if you got questions for myself or for Rich, then please go ahead and throw those in the description as we go along. So a large part of your show, I've noticed, is not a show. Large part of your channel is kind of this news aspect, and maybe even more so fantasy fishing. Like, you're all in, and I don't do fantasy anything. So take a deep dive for me on fantasy fishing, and just kind of the story, how it works. Cause I'm around a lot of fishermen, not a lot of do that. And it seems like you're all in.
Yeah, absolutely. So fantasy fishing has been around for a really long time. If I recall correctly, they pretty much brought fantasy fishing to fishing as a mainstream thing when they started the Elite Series, which I believe was 2006.
Okay.
Now the formats have changed and they've changed the games, but back then that's when it really started. And that was kind of the whole ploy, I think, by ESPN at the time to make bass fishing more mainstream. That's when they went to the Elite Series. That's when they mandated everybody had wrapped boats. That's when they bumped up the coverage. They made a lot of changes to make, bass fishing maybe more like NASCAR or a few other things. And one of the things they wanted to do is bring fantasy fishing in, because I don't know if you've ever played fantasy anything, right? But typically, I'm sure many of the people here watching along, you can let us in the chat, right? Like if you play fantasy football or basketball or whatever it is, you get more involved when you watch it. Like watching football on the weekend is one thing. If you play fantasy fishing, then you watch it or fantasy football, you play at a different level, or you watch a different level. You're checking in on games that isn't your home team because, right, you're seeing if your tight end's going to score or your defense is going to get points or whatever. And so same thing with fantasy fishing. You pick your rosters and you pick your anglers, and it gives you extra reasons and extra angles to watch in the tournament that make it more interesting. FLW also started it shortly after. They went through a phase. At one time, they had Hulk Hogan as like a spokesman, and they were giving away $1 million a year for the winner of fantasy fishing at one point. It was crazy money. Things have kind of settled back down to normal now. Like fantasy fishing for Bassmaster, I think if you win all in and you're a Bass member, it's probably worth $20,000 or $30,000 maybe at the end of the year, which is still pretty good money. Every week there's probably a couple grand in like Bass Pro gift cards and Rapala prize packs to win. So, and then there's groups like mine, the Beat HellaBass group. I do prizes every week for my private member groups for people that watch my channel.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. And then FLW has their games, and they give away rod and reel combos to the top 20 and year-end prizes like going fishing with like Bobby Lane or Justin Lucas or something like that for their different games. So it's pretty cool, and it's free to play. You just basically cost you an email, right? And you just got to have an email you sign up with. It takes a little bit of time.
Your life.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, each week, but it's really low. I mean, like literally at the lowest level, you could spend 5 minutes each week and get your lineups in. Yeah. Now, if you want to get serious and go back and look at archives and research, you can do that. You can take it as deep as you want, or you can keep it as fun as you want. And I try to bring, so I'm kind of a geek of the sport. I've been very passionate, followed tournament fishing for, since the early 2000s at a high level, following both, at the time FLW Tour and the Bassmaster Elite Series. Really like the history, get into the stats, have a pretty good memory of what happens. So like for me, I'm easy to like pull from the bank, like, oh, I feel like this guy did pretty good on Kentucky Lake back in the day, and then do some of the research and bring some of those nuggets. And so my videos give people kind of my own take on how I think the tournament's going to be won. What are the patterns, what types of anglers to pick. I give some of my picks. I give some kind of backup picks, and just kind of give some scenario and shed some light on that, and do it in a really short, compact video, so that if somebody wants to just go a little bit further, like instead of just randomly picking, right? I like the person, like this person's got a cool name, or this person's got a cool jersey, right? If you want to take it one step further and just do a little bit of research, you can watch one of my videos in 6, 8, 10 minutes and feel like you're, a little more informed in making your picks. And then also what helps is I think because FLW and Bass, a lot of these tournaments are, sometimes they're back to back, sometimes they're 4 weeks apart. It's not like the NFL where it's like every week, right? Every Thursday night I turn in my lineup or write for that or whatever. It's easy to like forget. So, if you subscribe to my channel, have the bell on, right, then you get those. There's a new fancy fishing video. I watch it, then I remember to get my lineup in and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the service or the play and the value add for that. And I also do write a fantasy fishing column for Bassmaster along with that.
Oh, I did not see that. I usually do like the full deep dive on individuals. Did not see your name there, but
yeah, I go by Rich Lingren on there, not HellaBass, but
yeah. Oh, that's probably why. I actually looked. I just didn't see it. It's a guarantee it's there, but I've been on the road, so wasn't able to do all of the due diligence I usually am able to do. So have you won any cash on this thing?
One of the early years I did finish like top 5 or 7 overall, which didn't qualify me for a Bassmaster prize pack, but it did qualify me for Tackle Warehouse. Their group gives away some like crazy prizes. So I probably got like 2-3 grand of stuff from Tackle Warehouse that year, but I've won some t-shirts. I've won some crankbaits. I've won some smaller prize packs, and then Actually, one year there was another group that had a fancy fishing contest. It was actually a pay to play. It was like $10 or $20 to enter for the year, or $40. I don't know, was something. And they had pretty good prizes. It was kind of a private little deal. But
Nice.
probably the coolest thing I ever won, I won 2 Zoom WEC crankbaits. So that was the old Ed Chambers crankbaits. I don't know if you're familiar with those. So here's.
Show them off.
So there's one of them, which is.
All right.
And so like back then, like he etched each one. That probably doesn't focus really well, but like
I can see it. Yeah.
You can kind of see it a little bit there. He signs them. This was an E1. His handwriting wasn't really that good. But anyways, so that was one. But then the other one, also cool. This is the E2, which is pretty cool. What made this one cool is actually Kevin Short signed it in 2013.
Yeah. That's rad.
So Kevin Short was an Elite Series pro at the time. He was big into using these plugs. These are the kind of plugs he used to win a couple of his tournaments. And now he's like a big national sales rep for Bassmaster, if you know, and he's from Arkansas. So, yeah.
Nice.
So that's probably the coolest thing I've won in fancy fishing.
Right.
And this year I'm in a couple pay-to-play leagues with a couple buddies where we kind of put, $20 on the line for the season or something like that. And then another one, we actually do our own, like not through the game site, but we actually did a draft and like drafted 6 anglers, and then we play our best 5 every week and do kind of a cumulative weight. So there's lots of ways to play fancy fishing if you're interested, if you want to get a little extra nerdy when it comes to tournament professional fishing.
Geek out over here with Rich. Are these other guys that we know, or are these just like buddies who are not on?
One of the guys in the private league is Matt Pangrak from BTL.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then the other guys are, you might know some. They're more regional. They're guys that are definitely into fancy fishing, and they're guys you'll see on message boards and live chats and things like that, but not necessarily like he would be the most recognizable one in that private league.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
I am leading after 2 weeks in the private league, in case anybody's watching in the group that we're playing against. Just want
anybody want just throwing that out there just in case any of your buddies are on. I love it. All right, we got some questions here. Now, keep in mind, I'm pretty sure you don't own a kayak. That is correct. You're like boat.
Absolutely. And I've actually never fished in a kayak.
It hurts a little bit.
Now I've been in like some of those like little kayaks, like just goofing around at like resorts and beaches and stuff like that, but I've never fished. I've definitely, and I've been in canoe. I don't know if I've ever fished I'd have fished. I was gonna say I was in the Wisconsin River, not too far from where you are, on a freshman trip in college, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't about fishing. That was more about having a good time on the sandbars. And then, I've definitely fished out of a lot of like small, like 12, 14 foot aluminum John boat type things with like trolling motors and, small boat fishing I've done, just not kayak.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe sometime. I'm not up in Minnesota very often. I got to get you in a kayak sometime.
I've talked about it. And for as long as I remember, I've had a bass boat, like literally since I was maybe like 19 or 20. And now I just this last year bought a brand new Camus, which is a 20-foot bass boat. And so there's a fairly major investment. And so I feel like if I got that kind of time, I probably should be sitting in that, because I've invested a lot.
I've seen it. It's nice. You got a video on it. And I'm like, dang. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of hard when you have all that space.
I have nothing against kayaks. It's just, there are definitely some small waters as an advantage, but typically if I have that kind of time, and the thing is, like, I live in Minnesota where there's probably, there's 2 lakes I can be on in less than 10 minutes from my, like, launch the boat.
Okay. That's it easy.
And then, within half an hour, there's probably 20, 30, within an hour, we're talking hundreds. So like.
Oh yeah. I love Minnesota because you guys got the boundary waters, right? North of you.
Also never been there.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, it's kind of it's a canoe place, right?
There are some places there you can use different levels of boats. There's like zones of the boundary waters.
Right.
Like on the first like couple layers, you can use some boats and motors and things. And they have some things where you can like bring your boat and then have your boat portaged into certain things. But I've not done that.
Oh man, I've gone a couple years and it's absolutely incredible. If the weather's right, because if it's not, you're in a canoe, and if it's windy, it's tough going. But it is like portage, small lake, and eventually you don't see people for days. It's absolutely incredible. And the pike and the smallies are just insane. So if you guys have never heard of the Boundary waters before, just go check that out. Boundary, Boundary waters, and it's pretty awesome. All right, got some questions here.
By the BWCA is another way to look it up.
Yes. And if you were looking for a trip out in the wilderness where it's like just you in the wilderness in a canoe, it's awesome. Where the bald eagles fly, and literally it's like there's Canada and there's the United States, and you're fishing the water in between it. It's pretty sweet. All right, we got some questions here. Let's kind of go back here. Mark said, "Doesn't know what you're missing." I think that was around the kayak conversation there. I'm not trying to make you a believer because I know you're a boat guy, and I brought you on tonight because I was talking with Fishing with Gramps, and he's like, "Oh yeah, HellaBass he's a hammer on the bass." So, sweet. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. Low Life comes in with a question for you. Ever tried the Berkeley slobber knocker?
Yeah, I bought a couple last season towards the end of the year, and on my last trip out, I threw it a little bit, was slow rolling it, and I made about 5 casts before a pike swallowed it and bit me off. But in those 5 casts, it felt like it. I mean, it started up really nice. It had a good vibration to it. It feels like a fish catcher, and clearly that pike liked it enough to take it down to the crushers. But I have one left in my boat. I'll probably get some more. But I mean, I got a whole. I mean, bladed jigs in general. I mean, like I'm a fan, right? Sorry about that, but like, right? I mean,
that box is worth like $10,000.
The gills with bladed jigs. It's a staple.
They are expensive. I mean, I guess you run the gamut. You have the $5 shatter baits, and you get up there like 16, 17 on the high end. But
yeah, I mean, I throw a decent amount of jackhammers. I've definitely done okay on the Thunder Crickets. The slobber knocker is a little bit less expensive, not much less expensive. But the one I would say my best value bladed jig would be the Tackle Warehouse Z-Man Custom. Like bang for the buck. That's the one I would go with.
Okay. How much that one run?
Like $8-9 maybe.
That's solid. I'm in for that because I, like you, will throw it and then something will come and snap it off in like hot second, or I'll hit some timber that I can't get it out of. Bucktail, what's he saying here? I spent a week canoeing in the Boundary waters when I was in high school. I've been wanting to do it again for years and can't talk to anybody making the journey. Yeah, it is not for the faint of heart. It's work. It is a lot of work. Sometimes
it's a trip, not a vacation.
Exactly. You gotta love fishing. You gotta love the outdoors.
You need to take a day off when you get home just to kind of get ready to get back to life.
Oh, I want to do that again. I gotta get something going on there. Hey, Low Life said thanks. Appreciate that. All right, let me go up here. I got some questions I passed up a long way back. All right. Well, this is probably for me. John B., what is your best opinion on pedal kayak? What do you think is the best, Old Town or Hobie? You know what? I can't really talk a whole lot about Hobie or Old Town. My opinion, the best pedal kayak that I love is the Propel drives. And if you are watching my channel lately, I've been dropping a bunch of Propel drive, kind of how you take them apart, how you work on them, because I love working with tools and working with my hands. I like being able to know how things work. And it's just bulletproof. The thing is built tough. And the beauty of the Propel drive, you got instant reverse, right? It's my understanding on your Hobies, you got to pull a lever to go in reverse. I just love whenever I catch a fish, I just start backing out. Or if I'm heading somewhere I don't want to be going because the wind's blowing me that way, I just back it out instantly. So that's my opinion on it. But you're only getting kind of one-sided because I've never owned a Old Town and I've never owned a Hobie. I understand how they work, watch plenty of videos on them, but hopefully, John B., that was helpful for you.
So you can hook up and then like pull the lever and start pedaling and basically do the Ike where you're like running to the back of a boat, but you're just like back pedaling with that kayak and just giving them the beans.
Instant. And it's fun. It's one of the reasons I like it. I like pedal drives mostly because, and here's the thing about pedal drives versus like motors. I was talking to Chad recently and I was talking about the Bonafide P127, which I just got a few months ago. And Chad was like, "Hey, why do you want a pedal drive?" I was like, "One, I'm getting old and I don't have any other form of exercise. And so being able to pedal, it actually takes a lot of work to get to one side of the lake. And two, all my lakes are between 500 and 2,000 acres, right? So not necessarily something I need to have a motor for. Now, if all around me was, 5,000 acre lakes, then I'll probably be getting a motor because I don't want to be driving all the way around the lake and putting it at different spots. So just something take in consideration if you're thinking motor versus paddle versus pedal. Just take in consideration where you're fishing most of the time. All right, I got some.
That's why I don't get a snowblower, because I need the exercise for shoveling.
I always regret that decision personally myself, because you're halfway through like the blizzard of the century and your back is like giving out on you. All right, what do we got here? All right, I got some questions for you. We're going to dive in. So usually I want to ask one of my guests on, ask them, hey, what are some things that you're pretty good at? And what I really trying to get at is like, what are you uniquely positioned to talk about, and that you excel in? And it's obvious through your YouTube channel. You have some of those things. And so let's hop into those, because I know, let me see here. I took some notes earlier. I know that one of your number one videos is on the wacky rig fishing. I think your most popular video, actually second most popular. The other one is something you posted like a decade ago.
Yeah.
When the first day YouTube was out, you posted a video and it's your number one video. But your second most popular, and it's my favorite way of fishing, is wacky rig fishing. So tell us why you love it, where you use it. Just kind of geek out on us a little bit.
Sure. Now, I will definitely say wacky rig fishing is not my favorite way to fish.
Okay.
I would much rather be power fishing with a frog, a bladed jig, a jig, something like that. But as a tournament angler and as a content creator, there are times you just need to get bit, right?
Mhm.
And as I'm not a huge fan of wacky rigs, I understand there's a time and a place when they're hard to beat. And so shallow water for me, and I'm not, I know there's a lot of people that'll throw a weightless Senko in like 10, 12, 15, 20 feet. That ain't me. Like for me, a wacky rig is definitely like 5 foot and less. And so, I mean, a lot of times I'm throwing it around cover, holes in the weeds, skipping them under trees, skipping around docks, things like that. I mean, docks primarily where I live. So it's an alternative to a jig. If I feel like I'm not getting bit on a jig and I feel like they're bass there, I'll definitely pick up a wacky rig. Or if I'm having fish short strike a jig, or just feels like the bite's off, then I feel like I'll slow down. And a lot of times then that's the wacky rig. Don't get too crazy color wise. I know there's a million different colors of yum dingers and Senkos and every other kind of stick bait out there. I pretty much stick to things that look like bluegills, like some kind of watermelon red, green pumpkin. I'm not a straight green pump guy. I always like a little bit of fleck. I don't know, it just makes me feel more confident, makes me feel fancy, and I just think it like gives off a little fleck, kind of like a bluegill. And to me, in my head, at least, that makes sense to me. And so I'm not super particular when I'm fishing shallow I use a lot of like dingers. I will use some Senkos. I'll use some, the General has made a big bump up the leaderboard for me lately. I actually think that Max Scent General is a pretty good stick bait, especially if you're gonna let it soak in there a little bit. If it's kind of a bite where, I mean, if they're just throwing it in there and then like they're grabbing it like in the first second or two, then it doesn't matter, right? When it's a little tougher and you think like it's sitting in there soaking a little bit, then maybe some of that Max Scent definitely can make sense. I definitely had some times where I was like skipping it into a culvert with a little bit of current, and I feel like I could really let that thing sit in there and it would kind of swirl around, and then like they'd come and get it. So there are times that I'll definitely leverage that Max Scent. For the main thing, I like a 7-foot 3-power Dobbins. I use a Fury 703. That's my main like dock rod, wacky rig rod. I usually have like 30-pound braid on that, 20 or 30 pound, fairly heavy. I'm not going too light. And when I'm fishing a wacky rig, I typically like a moss green or something dark, kind of neutral braid color. Now, like on my deeper finesse stuff, I definitely will go like that bright yellow or bright white, high vis, what I would say. But I go low vis when I'm fishing shallow, because typically I'm either going to go straight to my hook. If it's heavy enough, gnarly enough cover, I'll go braid right to my hook.
Okay.
Don't mind Copper up there if you hear him in the background. Or I'm going to go just a really short fluorocarbon leader. And sometimes it'll be 8-10 pound if it's really sparse and clear. It could be 12-16 pound if we're around some gnarly stuff, but usually it's a foot, maybe 2 foot leader at most for that. And that's part of the reason I'm going with that low vis, right? I'm either going direct or short leader. So I don't want like bright green right to the
right
the hook, or just like 6-12 inches up. And then for a hook, I really like the Nico style, like the VMC Nico. There's quite a few. I mean, the Owner Sniper, the Mustad Titan X, like there's quite a few. But for me, I do not like those circular round wacky hooks. I feel like they skin hook bigger fish in the mouth, and I feel like I lose more fish. To me, this Nico style in a 1 or a 1/0 to me is by far the best for hooking fish, keeping them pinned, being able to muscle them out a little bit. So for me, that's what works for my mechanics and my setup.
Sure.
So I'd say if you throw a circle hook or a round wacky rig and it works for you, keep using it. But if you are starting to lose a few fish and you're not sure why, and you see other people recommend all these round wacky hooks and it's not quite working for you, try these kind of O'Shaughnessy style, kind of more Nico style. That would be a recommendation.
There you go, folks. If you watch my video, I'm going to tell you a round circle hook because I have. And so if you're like, hey, Darren, you're stupid and I keep losing fish, listen to HellaBass because he probably knows what he's talking about. So,
right. And like I think, like there's no absolutes in fishing. Go back to the whole like snell versus not sell, straight shank versus EWG, right? Like it really comes down to mechanics. So depending on your rod, your line, your hook set, if the circle hook works for you, keep doing it. If you're not having success, then this is what I would try.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, it might be hard to see, but there's kind of a clear little band. You kind of see that on my wacky rig.
Oh yeah.
It's a silicone band right there, and it doesn't show up on the screen, which is good, right? Because I don't necessarily want the fish to see that little band. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a big fan of the O-rings, right? Like I know people use the O-rings or their double O-ring like that to make a saddle, but like I don't like. Traditionally, most people use one O-ring, right? And they'll hook it, I guess, parallel to the worm. And to me, that is too much chance this thing's going to curl up on the hook or it's going to get hooked to the side. Like to me, hooking it perpendicular gives me personally the best hookups, and I stick fish better, and I hook them in the roof of the mouth, and I pin them the way I want to pin them. So for me, I don't like putting the hook the other way, if at all possible. And I like using these silicone bands. The ones I use typically are the ones from Arsenal Fishing. They make a tool that you can apply them with. 7mm band usually works good for like a dinger or a Senko, and you can use the tool. Or if you buy the 8mm bands, you can just slide them on without the tool. So that's kind of like my little hack. I just carry the 8mm and I just thread it on, just pull it on the end and just put it up, and then I like to hook it through the middle. You can still hook it the other way, through the band or under the band like you like if you like that. But these also, I feel like, just make the bait last longer, even more so than an O-ring. You got more surface area. I think it's also clear. It's a little, I don't know. For me, this is the way to go to like maximize efficiency, save the most on baits, and still get the most hookups. This is my like main setup.
The
other
like
thing I will do is I don't like the weighted hooks for wacky rig. And they like, I don't mind the weighted jig heads, but to me, I'm always looking for ways not to carry as much tackle. And I don't have one set up here, but one thing I will do is I will take a little peg, right? Like the way you would peg. I didn't really prepare that well for this, but right. So like this, like normally I would like a Texas rig like that.
Yep.
But I'll use that same peg, and I'll just peg like a 16th or an 8th, right? And I'll just make my own little jig head hook. So instead of stacking wacky jig head weighted, I've already got little sinkers. I've already got the hooks.
Right.
So I just rig it up if I want to add a weight versus carrying, and I assume I assume some of the people here are kayak anglers, right? So you may not have noticed you can't carry as much tackle in your kayak as I can in my 20-foot Camus.
What?
So I always look for even for me as somebody that has basically almost unlimited storage, right? But sometimes you're going to fish as a co-angler and you always want to keep things a little more simple. So I'll just peg a tiny sinker above my hook to basically make my own weighted jig head versus carrying and stocking jig heads.
Yeah. It's
just more tackle you need to buy, more tackle you need to organize, more tackle you need. So like I like to look for things where I can keep things simple. And that's one of the ways I do that.
All right. No, I like the
nerdy enough on wacky rigs.
I love wacky rig fishing, and I guess I learned something new tonight. So for me, it's always been I just used to buy heat shrink tubes.
Sure. Same principle.
Same principle, but silicone's a lot easier because one, you don't have to break out the heat gun, and you don't end up melting on both sides. Two, they become like really hard, right? So it's got to affect the action in some way, and they start to crisp out a little bit, and they stay on forever. But I like the silicone idea. And so Arsenal. So I noticed there's a sticker over your shoulder. What is Arsenal? Is that something you're involved in? Something you started? I'm curious.
Yeah, Arsenal Fishing is a company I worked with. They've been a partner of the channel for a couple of years now. They're a Minnesota-based tackle company. The guy's name is Dan Fabiano. Arsenal comes from his, I want to say his father or grandfather was a veteran. So that's kind of his tribute to some of his, I might exactly got it right, but it's something like that. You know, and he basically wants to honor them. So a lot of his stuff is not that one, but he has like other things called like the assault bug and the deadly Nedley and a few other things that kind of have kind of ballistic Ned. So he's got some kind of Arsenal artillery kind of themed lures and baits. But yeah, that's one of his big sellers is that Wacky band setup, and you can use it for Nico. There's other ways to use that to save plastics as well. But yeah, they're a Minnesota-based company. They got some unique products. They got some apparel, you know, visor or hats, hoodies, sun shirts. They do like way bags. They've got quite a variety of things, and they try to do things a little more unique. They're not typically a lot of the same kind of cut and repeat stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's got some good fish catching products.
I noticed there's some people talking about your visors early on in the show. Is that your thing?
Yeah, this is not a natural visor here. This is a custom.
Love it. Fishing with Gramps, great braid scissors. I did see a video, a short on that you had. So you were like butter.
Yeah, there's the Arsenal braid scissors, and yeah, I'll use that for making visors too. But I also keep one here, right? Because you know, every good, you know, if you're doing a box opening, you got to have a sharp object next by. So we keep the Arsenal braid scissors handy.
There you go.
And I said the only one other thing to touch on, I guess I didn't touch on my reel. I like a bigger reel, like a 3,000 or 4,000 size reel.
It is a bigger reel.
I think for spinning reels, a bigger reel gives you a little more power. The bigger diameter, I think the line comes off better, so you skip further.
Makes sense.
You get a little more diameter for your drag, your inches per turn, right, when you're reeling in a fish. And I think they actually balance rods better. So I know a lot of people think, you know, 2,000, 2,500, but I'm much more of a 3,000, 4,000 guy when it comes to bass spinning reels. And I think if you give it a whirl, I think over time you'll see the advantages of a bigger reel.
All right, solid. I think you just answered Mike's question. A big Dobbins fan looking for a reco for the drop shot Wacky spinning rod.
Yeah. So for me, if I was only going to have one rod to do both, I would get a 703 in your whatever budget, right? Whether you're, you know, $80, $90 for a Colt, $100 for a Mavic, $120 for a Fury, right? They have them just about every line up to like the Ecstasy, which is like $470. But obviously you don't need that. But I'm saying, but for me, I prefer a 702 for drop shot, and I use a 703 for a Wacky rig. So like, to me, a Wacky rig's typically got a little bit bigger hook. Like I use a pretty good sized hook, right? Like that's not a drop shot hook.
Right. That's a little beefy.
So for like drop shots, jig worms, things with a little bit bigger hooks, shaky heads, small finesse jigs where I've got a little bit bigger hook, I'm typically using a 3-power just because or if I'm Texas rigging it all like a shaky head, I want to be able to drive through that plastic a little more backbone. For Neds, drop shot, things like that, small swim baits, I like the 2-power. So that's, but if I was only going to pick one or do both, it would just be the 3-power, right?
Yeah.
I know not everybody can carry 2 rods for that, but that's my take on it.
Gramps says, have to try the 3,000 over 2,500 next time.
Just go 4,000 grams. Go big or go home, buddy.
Ooh, there you go. I get tired looking how big that thing is. That's a lot of weight to be thrown around. All right. Scissors or clippers?
Mostly scissors. I mean, I do have some of those boomerang snips too in the boat, but like, I do like the versatility of a scissors. Typically can do more things in a pinch, right? Like, again, if you're looking for something that can do a lot of things, right? If I have to, I don't know, I can't make a visor with the clippers. If I need to cut something up or make a little sign, or I need to, like, I don't know, make a patch, or I don't know, cut a lure out of my pants or whatever in a kayak, right? Like a scissors gives me a lot more utility, I think, than a clippers. So if I only have one, it would be a small pair of scissors.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, now you're speaking to the fishing kayak crowd because, like you said earlier, just a little real estate available in those bad boys.
Yeah, I mean, a beard trimming would be really inefficient with the clippers, but you know, the nice scissors you can.
I I've been
If
going
it was
back.
too hot a day and you miscalculated, you can make yourself some jorts with the scissors. I mean, the endless
True.
options out there when you
True.
think about it. If you want to go
Yeah.
sleeveless, you go Matt Robertson or Tyler Rivette, and you want to just get, gun show, scissors way more efficient than a clippers.
Yeah. All right, so let's switch gears here. We've been talking about the wacky worm, which I could talk about all day, and trying to make. Where's he at? Low life, my man. Not a big fan of the wacky, but look, he says this, and then later, check this out. Boom. So I'm trying to make low life a believer, and I think he just made himself one because I know recently he just nailed a biggie. All right, so let's transition from the wacky about something I'm not very good at. Two things actually you're good at that I'm not. So I was really excited, and I can't believe we've already 42 minutes into the show and we haven't talked about it yet.
Time flies.
Topwater frogging is something you're good at, and jigging. Two things I absolutely suck at. And since your hashtag is suck less, help me suck less at these two things.
Well, first thing is, if you want to fish frogs, don't watch Graham's channel. He's got a big negative aura when it comes to frogs. So that's the first step. But yeah, I mean, the frog is there's plenty of good ones out there. Like, you don't have to spend a ton on a frog. Like a Booyah Pad Crasher, I think they're like $6-7. That'll get the job done. One thing you can do, and I don't have any frogs handy because I actually had a high school seminar and that stuff's up in the garage right now, and I was coming in hot here. But you can tweak the hooks ever so. Actually, I guess I have some in a package here. It's a Knukled frog, not a bargain friendly frog, but for demonstration purposes.
What's not bargain friendly?
The Knukled frogs.
What are we looking at?
I don't know. They're probably 12.
All right, that's high-end frog.
Double-digit dollar frog.
Oh yeah.
But you want something with a pretty soft body, right? There are some frogs out there that don't cave down quite as well. You will see that the hooks on this are actually really tight to the body. So you can take a pliers and just lift or widen out. Just give it like 1 or 2 degrees of separation. That can increase your hookups a little bit if you're having problems. One thing you can do is you can, in this clamshell package, some people will talk about boiling them, which I think is a bit of a waste of time. But you can, if you leave it in here, and it's like a little green room, you throw this on the dash of your car, let them sit up there in the sun in the springtime, let them warm up. That'll soften them up.
All right.
That's a little easier than boiling them, and then less likely that you're going to ruin your frog, and less likely you're going to piss off your spousal or your roommates or whatever it's going to be by boiling frogs. So line setup, always braid. I like 50 to 65 pound braid. Could you get by with 40? Yes, but you know what? Fish are not line shy when it comes to eating a frog. So, and anything less than 40, I feel like you got a really bad chance of digging in on the spool when you hook set. And then also on a snap set with a stout rod, you can break 30 pound. On a straight slow pull, really hard to break 30, but on a snap set, it's not that hard to break 30 in my opinion.
Okay.
And to me, you can catch fish in open water around sparse cover, but typically you're throwing a frog around some kind of thicker cover over a mat or something thick, or docks, or you're throwing it in brush, typically around cover. So typically when they eat it, you're going to want to set and you want to move them. You want to get their heads up. You want to get them on top and get them coming. And then you just keep them coming. So that is not the time to be playing fish, finessing, anything like that. So I like to basically overpower the fish. So I'm going to use typically for my tactical frog, and it's typically going to be like a 735 Dobbins. And you can get that in the lower end series or a higher end, however bougie you want to be about your frog fish. And they've got one at every price point. But we're talking a 7.3 mag heavy fast action. I mean, it is a meat stick. Got a little bit of tip for casting and accuracy, but I want to hit them hard. And for me, it comes down to feel. You definitely like the whole getting them to eat. It's a timing thing, and you got to figure out. This is back to that mechanics thing. You got to figure out what works for you. Some people like to count to 1. Some people like to count to 2. Some people, as soon as the splash happens, sometimes everyone wants to visually see it, but you just kind of got to get your own thing down to what works for you. But the one thing is, if you don't set hard enough and you don't move that fish, because these are big hooks, you're compressing it. They're typically in cover. Not setting hard enough is definitely I don't know. You can't set too hard with a frog. Let's just put it that way. Literally, it should look like you're trying to break your rod every time you set the hook on a frog, in my opinion. And longer rod is better. I wouldn't go frogging with a 6 footer, 6'6". I'm talking 7 to 7.5. That's kind of the range that I like to operate. You got to put it where the fish are, right? Making precision casts, finding pockets, finding holes, tucking it into little crevices, being able to walk it and slowly move it and pop it in place very deliberately. In heavy mats, I will throw little BBs or little rattles in there to make a little noise. And also in like a thick mat, it'll push down, which means the frog will displace more water, which, lateral line wise, it'll help that fish track it through a mat if it's pushing down on the mat harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're displacing more water. You're giving them more of a signal vibration through the water. And then when they come up with it, right, if it's heavier, I mean, they got to move water, right, when they're coming up to eat it and suck it down. If it's really buoyant and light, it can get pushed away. If it's got a little more weight and it's sitting, it's a little easier for them to pull it in. But you don't want to stuff it so full you're like, ruining your hook gap where you're like not allowing the body to collapse and get a hook set in. I think other thing to consider if you're in a kayak, I've heard people talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
Body position, your momentum. Like, I don't think you ever want to be going forward with a kayak, throwing a frog, having that right out in front of you, and you're going towards them, and then you try to set, and then like you're really just like, right, you're losing so much leverage. You typically should probably be like angled or kind of backing up or something, or anchored, or like just think about like you don't want to be like throwing straight forward and going at it, because if you try to reel up and set, you are just probably not going to eat up enough slack, and a lot of your momentum of your hook set's going to be absorbed by you sliding forward versus getting into the fish. So I would think that would be particularly challenging to make sure that you're in the right position and you're kind of like, so you got enough resistance that if you do set hard, right, that you're not sliding and moving, and you're putting that in through the line to the fish. So I think that would be something to definitely consider.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gramps that was my question. Are you a believer in the frog fur, or are you just kind of like,
yeah, I mean,
gimmicky?
that's I don't have my box here. Yeah, I mean that frog's okay. The boom boom frog. I don't think the velvet or the Velcro thing on top makes any difference. I honestly slightly disappointed in that frog. I mean, I definitely catch fish on it. It gets bit. I don't feel like the hookups are as good as it should be on that Stanford boom boom frog. Not saying it's a bad frog. For me, it's not in my top 5. It's not in my heavier. It's not something I'm throwing in a tournament.
Oh, well, that's fun. What's your top 5?
Well, probably these like this one, which is the Teckle, or the, I don't know if they're in particular order, but the Reaction Innovation Swamp Donkey or the Teckle version. These are really good frogs. They're hard to find. They're pretty good. My all-time favorite frog is no longer in production. It's called the True Tungsten Mad Max frog. Find them on eBay. They typically go for 30, 40, 50 bucks for a frog. So that tells you what people think of them.
Yeah.
Current frogs, the Spro 65 is hard to beat. The Pad Crasher is probably my best budget frog. Terminator is okay. I feel like they've changed a little bit on the Terminator though. I don't know. That's probably my like top 4 that I normally throw, and then we're getting into kind of that B tier. Like they're good, they're okay, but I mean, Strike King makes it. I mean, there's a lot of people that make okay frogs. I mean, the thing is, like, back to that point earlier, I find a few baits, and I kind of like, you need a couple different colors, you need a pop in, you need a walk in. Like, if they're working for me, I don't need to go out and try every new frog from every company that comes out. They could be really good,
Right.
but I'm already in my wheelhouse. I already got something that works. I don't necessarily always need to go out and get the newest and greatest. Not saying you never shouldn't. You don't want to try and advance, but I'm not like buying every new frog out and testing them all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. So what makes a great frog for you?
So what makes a good frog is the hooks, right? You need good hooks. The angle of the hooks, a soft, body that compacts, that allows, I mean, and then you need a weight system that is reasonably reliable. Like there's some that just, they fall apart really easy. And it's like, well, I catch 2 fish and I lost the weight. Now the frog is no good. Like, and I don't know. It just, ones that get bitten hook up really good, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know,
those are my favorite too.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to overcomplicate it on it, and that could be different for different people regionally, or how they fish, or the cover they fish, the forage they have. But yeah.
All right, we got a couple questions on the frogs. We're gonna move over to jigs because we got like 9 minutes left. Because I know you got to go. You have a hard stop here.
I mean, I can go till about 1:45.
All All right, sounds good. So this comes from Lost and Tackle. Solid question. How do you bend the hooks without compromising them?
I mean, you're just making taking the pliers ever so slight tweak. You're not like, I mean, we're talking a degree or two, just tweaking them. Like
you just
if you
grabbing them
bend
with
them and
like
open them, then yeah, you're breaking that temper. But we're tweaking them.
right on.
Typically not an issue.
7 hook. Always bend my hooks up a few. Right on. South Jersey. Hella, have you ever used a single hook EWG style frogs?
No, I mean, there's a couple good ones out there. Like I think the Depths Slither and a couple others. I just never gotten into those single hook frogs. I don't know. I don't have issue with the double hooks. So I'm not fixing what knots broken.
Yeah. No, I understand. All right. Well, let me see here. Let's move over to jig fishing. So lay it on us. If you're going to talk to someone who like, okay, I've tried it, I suck.
So my jig box has got more full than my regular, like my blade jig box or anything else. But yeah, I mean, most of the time, a Bass Tech tungsten jig is my go-to. 3/8 or half. It's I don't know. For me, it's a really good way to get a big bite, as well as being efficient on the water. So I usually will put some kind of a chunk, as speed craw, an old craw. You know, I mean, like this one, like another thing I like to do just for efficiency and like save money, right? Like here's a BFE that I tore the head out as a flipping bait. So I just trimmed it down and makes a nice jig chunk, right? Like, so you get all those ones that are Texas rig, you know, and you can no longer get a hook in the Texas, you trim off back to the scissors thing, the first 1/2 inch, and now it's a perfect jig trailer.
Nice.
You know, get extra use, extra life out of it. Anyways, but what I love about a jig is its propensity to get a bigger bite. Now, there are days that you have to be able to lay off the jig, right? There's just some days that you need to throw a Texas rig or a Wacky rig to get the bites. But when the bite is good and they're eating it, there's nothing that matches it as far as like efficiency and the big fish appeal. The one thing, like if you're throwing a Texas rig, right, which we've all done, like literally every fish you set the hook on, you're fixing a bait, and you're lucky to get 1-2 fish in a bait, and you're re-rigging and grabbing a new one in the bag. A jig, right, when the bite is good and you thread that up on there, right, you can typically get 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 fish, right, without even maybe sometimes fixing it or touching it, snapping it out of the weeds, right? They're not constantly fixing it. So when the bite is good, right, I can probably make 10, 20% more presentations than maybe the guy behind me or in front of me flipping a Texas rig. And same thing with like against a Wacky rig. When you need to slow down and throw the Wacky rig, it's really hard to beat. But if they're biting a jig, I mean, I can probably be 30, 40% more effective. Like waiting for this thing to trickle down a dock pose, right? Like, but if they're eating this thing on the fall and it's like throw it in there, hop, hop, bang, reef them out, like I can probably fish twice as many docks in a day with a jig than I can a Wacky rig. So if the bite's good and they're eating it, efficiency wise, I will mow you down on a good bite with a jig over a Wacky rig. And I'm probably going to get a few bigger bites that day. You know, in a team tournament, ideally, right, the guy in the front flipping a jig, the guy in the back clean up. You know, getting the pressured, maybe the fish that got spun by somebody else or the one you missed or was just, and then typically, I mean, I would say my go-to trailers day in and day out are a Menace Scrub or a Speed Craw. So a Strike King Menace Scrub or a Speed Craw. And I like those. I don't know if I got anything's a mess. I've not started doing the spring organization by any means yet. But there's there's an Okie Craw with a Speed Craw. The Speed Craw and the Menace Scrub are nice because they have a pretty good, like they kick on the way down. And when you're moving them and dragging them, hopping them. But when I go to like swim it in, right, I'm getting that kick. So if I'm not sure what the fish are doing or where they're at, and if I want to like pitch it under a dock, pitch it next to a stump, I can swim it back in over clumps of grass, or like I can go back and forth, or I can throw it down the edge of the dock and I can swim it, right? So I can kind of like do different things because I've got a swimming trailer on it and see what the fish want. And then I can kind of dial in. And if they really are starting to eat it on the swim, I might get rid of the Arky style and go to a swim jig, or maybe I'll try a chatterbait. But this gives me a lot of flexibility to like sample the water in a lot of different ways when I'm pre-fishing or trying to figure out the bite, and unlocking it without trying a bunch of different rods. And then like if you're in a kayak or you're fishing from bank, right? Like I can rig this up and I can drag this on the bottom super slow. I can hop it, more of a reaction strike, right? I can throw it out and reel it in, kind of slow roll it. I can roll it out and I can burn it across the top, right? I can do a lot of different things with a jig and trailer. I can carry a couple jigs and a handful of trailers that I can change color, right? I can go with a couple natural dark jigs, and then I can have some watermelon, maybe some black, maybe some green, right? And I can kind of dial up or down based on my watercolor, my forage. And then, I can, go from dragging on the bottom to like, Alabama shake on the top and everything in between to be testing a lot without having a bunch of different rods. Right.
So what's your setup for the jig?
Yeah. So typically for like a dock fishing, it's typically like a 705, 7'5" power, 20, 22 pound fluorocarbon straight to the jig. And then I will bump up to make a 7.3, 7.4, 7.5 rod if I'm more open water or flipping like lay down stuff. But if I want to skip it and be precise, 7-footer is like a little bit more compact for accuracy. But again, I want that 5-power rod, hit them hard, get them coming, moving. Again, it's not something I'm playing and working to fish. It's like get them hooked up, get them come to the boat, and let's swing them in.
Yeah, love it.
Up to about 5 pounds, they're just getting hoisted in the boat.
Love it.
And I would say colors are simple to me. Like most of the time, like I throw this like Okie Craw, which is like a black, green, pumpkin, blue. And then I throw this black, green, pumpkin, brown. And then I just kind of dial it up and down. I mean, I have other colors, but those are my two mainstays. And then I will, more bluegill, I'll go more watermelon, and a little bit more fleck. And if I want more black, I'll, you can just kind of tone them up and down based on, and same with the trailer, right? I can bulk it up with a rage craw or a chigger craw, or I can slim it down with a menace grub or a speed craw.
Love it. I like your colors, mostly because they kind of fall in line. I typically stick to the naturals, the greens with the flex. So I don't really go crazy with colors, which is interesting. So really, thinking of colors, it just reminded me you had a video that I was going to ask you about, and you essentially said why bass crush red in the spring was the title. Now I didn't watch the video because I was like, hey, I'm gonna have Rich on tonight and he can just tell everybody about it. But it wasn't like, hey, everyone knows, like, oh, you'll see a ton of videos here in the next few weeks. Red this, red that. But your kind of take on that video was why?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few reasons, and I don't know that any of us really know. But one, right, I think there is like a seasonal migration and molting of crayfish as they come out of winter in a lot of our lakes. There is some science based on diet, depending on the type of soil or lakes there are some species of crayfish in the spring that get really red. That's part of it. I think there is something to also that red represents a certain type of forage and a certain type of vitamin source that I think the fish need in the spring for pre-spawn. So I think like they, I don't know, genetically, or they just know, or like it's wired into them that that's, kind of like a mother, right? When she's pregnant, right? Her body craves different things, right? Based on what they need, iron or different, right? So I think the bass has some of that as well. That red kind of, and then I think also part of it is based on my research is that in cold water, the way eyes of fish work, they're not like the warmer the water, the better they see. And when it's really cold and they're coming out in spring, their eyes are just starting to like get better. And I think sometimes it's just the bright color, and they're the most active, they're most unpressured coming out of winter, right? I mean, down south, people do fish year round, but honestly, right, until it gets nice out, there's not as many people fishing for them. They're not as pressured. So whether they're up where we live under the ice or down south, they get less pressure. So when they're starting to get in that pre-spawn or late winter, early pre-spawn, they're the easiest to catch. They're the hungriest. Their eyesight's starting to turn up, and they haven't been pressured. So like, it just could be maybe just picking it out. Maybe it's the contrast in the grass. I think there's just a lot like, it's like flashing the red in front of the bull, right? I think there's a lot of things that all work together that can make red. And to some degree, it doesn't always have to be red. Sometimes that's why a bright white or chartreuse or just very visible colors sometimes work in the spring, because those fish are hungry, they're motivated, they need to eat, and they haven't been pressured as much. So yeah, there's a lot going on there to unpack, but
no, solid. If you're interested in hearing the more deeper, just head over to his channel and check out that video. Couple more questions. Now we're coming to the end of our time here. So if you have a question for Rich, go ahead and throw that in the comments and we'll kind of end on one of those questions. But another question from me, Rich. You had a video titled, I started catching bigger bass when I did this. Lay it on us. What is this?
Yeah, that was a tournament video. So one of the things that like I've learned, and I don't know if if you just are super literal about your YouTube titles, they don't perform as well. So
No.
if I would have titled that tournament or that video, Lake Waconia TBF stop number 4 tournament, you probably would have got some views.
Sure.
But you try, I mean, I, I don't know. You can call it clickbait, but as long as you deliver, I feel like, right? I don't feel like it's clickbait. You need a curiosity gets the click, right?
Sure.
So I try to come up with titles that are reflective of what's in the video, but yet drive intrigue that makes somebody want to find out more about the story from the title, right? So it basically is a story of like, we started the day doing one thing, and we tried fishing offshore and shallow, but it wasn't until we moved to flipping grass and milfoil late in the season is when we got all of our weight in our bag. So that's kind of that was in a nutshell. It was the mid tournament adjustments that started producing the bigger bass and moved us up.
Yeah, solid. So let me see here. We got
I guess one thing while you're looking there, I've seen several familiar faces from people that kind of hang out in some of my live streams. So shout out to you guys like Chris and Matthew and a few others. I might have missed some, but definitely a few people that kind of maybe they both always watch your shows as well. Bass Pundit and a few others. Gramps I've seen in my streams as well. So any of you guys that came to come hang out and check out the Kayak Fishing Obsessed show, I'm glad you guys came over and hung out as well.
Yeah, right on. I think like Grant's got a question for you. Rich, you going to the Classic?
We are leaning towards that. We're in the final negotiations at home, but I think I have some work trip that's going to get me to Indianapolis the Wednesday and Thursday before, so that's not that far to get to Knoxville from there. So I would say chances are better likely than not, but we're not officially locked in. So
all right, right on. Got a question.
I will make it well known on the Instagrams and the socials, and we'll throw out the beacon and we'll meet up at a booth and meet all these people that I've come to feel like I know super well, but I've never shook their hands. So it'd be cool to shake their hands and meet them in person.
Right on. Here comes a question from Scott Hanneman. Do you use forward-facing sonar?
So I've had 360 for about a year and a half, Mega 360, but I did get a Garmin Livescope in September last year. So I have it. I only got to use it a handful of times. It's pretty cool. It's powerful. I've only used it a few times outside of my own boat. So I do have a few videos. One where I was fishing in a buddy's boat where we were using 360 and Garmin in combination with throwing Minnesota rigs for smallies on Mille Lacs. So I've got a pretty cool video where we were using it to kind of target boulders and throw this thing for big smallies on Mille Lacs last year. And then also late in the year, I finally got on a good jerkbait bite on my last day out fishing in November 12th, where I really got to leverage deep jackal rearrange around the grass that we had left on basically the last day before things started icing up. There was a pretty good video where I was able to set my camera up and get like how I made the adjustment from a regular jerkbait to a deep diving jerkbait to get my bait down to the weeds. And then you can see the fish react. And it basically went from not catching hardly anything. And when I made that adjustment, then you could see him coming out of the grass and eating it. So it was a pretty cool last experience before I had to put it away. So I'm kind of excited to go out and start using it more this spring, but I'm pretty new to it.
Yeah. I got Bass Pundit. I was curious to hear Hella talk kayak fishing.
I'm definitely not against it. And if I had, it's like I only got so much vacation time and I got kids and their sports and stuff. So it's hard to justify getting out of the Camus to get in a kayak. But I think in a few years when I got more time, or if I move somewhere where I've got a little lake or pond that I can just leave it there, I think I'll probably have one someday. It's just not right now.
Yeah.
I see
Gramps says we're going to be in Indy. We'll get you in a river on a yak.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be there long enough, but yeah. So this is the Minnesota rig. We were only allowed one hook in Minnesota. So it's all teaser blades and one hook. So that's the Minnesota rig. It's made by Hog Farmer. They make good rigs, whether you're a 3 hooker or a 5 hooker or whatever. They make they're high quality, but that's what we're forced to throw in Minnesota if we want to throw an umbrella rig.
You're limited to one.
Yep. No, we can't even have dummy baits.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Interesting. Ohio's 3. Fascinating.
Basically lawlessness where you live compared to here.
Ohio. So a couple questions for you to end out our time here. If you still have one, go and throw it in the chat. but I'm curious. What does the channel look like? What does 2023 look like for you? Do you have goals? Is this something you just kind of do on the side for fun? Do you hope for this to be something like full time in the future? Because
Yeah.
it sounds like you've been going at it pretty hard for the last few years.
Yeah. I guess I haven't really set goals other than that I just want to make, more. I mean, we're in fantasy fishing. We're in kind of like tackle tip mode right now, but hopefully another month we're getting back into on the water fishing, right? Testing out that new Livescope, trying out new baits, going to some new fun destinations, getting into tournament videos. That's all part of the package. The live streams, I guess I do those mostly Wednesday nights, similar to this. So tomorrow night I have Shane Durantz, who's one of the Bassmaster Elite Series photographers,
Okay.
on. So he's going to give us some like behind the scenes and maybe some stories and some dirt on some pros. And I don't know, it should be a fun conversation. He seems like a cool guy. I met him down in La Crosse last year. Do some boat reviews, do a lot of different things. So I don't really have goals other than, I'm not really interested in just like, I'm not trying to, I mean, obviously I want to grow, but it's not like I'm like, I need to get to 50,000. I need to get to 100,000. Like,
Right.
I'm really about like slowly and serving the community. Like I'm just like want to keep delivering to the people that are already there. And if they tell their friends and we grow a little bit, or if you guys think this is cool and want to come check out one of my streams, guys like Gramps and South Jersey Fisherman and Kyle Downey, and they're definitely familiar faces. So we got a great community just like you do. We hang out, we chat, much like you are. We're very in the chat, answering questions. It's very community focused. So I love that. To me, it's just about really building that out, and that's what is most rewarding. Putting a few dollars of revenue in to put some gas in the Camus isn't the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I still have a full-time job. I still got 2 kids in high school sports, so I'm really busy. But for me, if it can help offset my fishing, right, and kind of make it where I don't have to dip into my daytime funds, right, for fishing and that kind of hobby, that's a pretty good spot. I've thought about, if I had to do it full time and I was depending on it, I feel like that might turn into a more of a grind. And I think the burnout would come much quicker. So yes, it sounds really cool to go full time, but if I had to be like Ben Milliken, where I had to make 3, 4, 5 videos a week, and that's how I paid the bills, that's a lot of pressure. And that might take the fun out of editing and doing what we do and hanging out as much. So it could be a bit of a double-edged sword. So I don't know. I mean, so I think I'm a little bit more satisfied with slow kind of growth and just building out the community at this point. And in a few years, if we can get to a happy place where I can get by with a couple of videos a year and maybe back down on the work and have more time to fish, sure. But I'm not like in a big hurry to be like, I got to get to 200,000. I'm going to quit my job and all that stuff.
Yeah. No, it's solid. I mean, when you do it that way, people can trust that you're there for the reason you're there to serve them, right? And that's solid growth without trying to hack anything. So I respect that.
Yeah, and
So
for
if
me,
you
like I always say, like here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less, right? I'm here to share. It's really focused around like, I do a lot of tournament videos. I'm not hiding where I'm fishing. I'm showing the baits. One day it's this jerk bait, another day it's the next. One day I'm throwing a Senko, the next day I'm throwing a Yum Dinger. I'm very transparent about what baits I'm using. As a tournament fisherman, I don't really care what I'm using as much as I want to use what catches fish, and I'm very much transparent on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you haven't done it, so head over to HellaBass. Go ahead and get that sub. See what content is coming out. I don't know about you guys, but learned a ton on frogs and jigs tonight, and so looking forward to getting that rocking and rolling here the upcoming season. So if you haven't done so, hit the like button. Help me out. Help me get this get some replay action on this. YouTube usually likes that if they see other people like it. So help me out there. And special thanks to usrivermaps.com once again, and for your channel members. Thank you guys so much. Rich, thank you so much for your time. I know you got to get going here, so I want to be sensitive to that. And we'll see you around. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, and nice meeting a bunch of you in chat. And look forward to seeing a few over hanging out sometime in my chat.
Right on. All right, guys. See you next week, same time. All right. You have a good one.